Imagine this. Someone just disrespected you directly, openly, without hesitation. In that instant, your blood boils. Your chest tightens. A storm of sharp responses floods your mind, each one begging to be unleashed. You feel insulted, wounded, furious, and deep inside a voice screams, "I need to put them in their place right now." But pause for a moment, because this very second, this exact crossroads will define far more about you than the disrespect itself. You see, the true test of character is not what someone does to you. It's how you choose to respond. That moment of decision reveals whether you're truly strong or whether you've surrendered control of yourself to anger. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who faced more criticism, betrayal, and attacks than most of us could imagine, warned us plainly. The one who gets angry has already lost. At first, that may sound like weakness, as if he's telling us to roll over and accept mistreatment. But that's not what he meant. His point was deeper. Giving in to rage is letting the other person win twice. They hurt you with their words or actions, and then they take your self-control away. Think about that. How many times have you walked away from an argument and thought, "Why did I say that? Why did I let them push me so far?" In the moment, lashing out feels powerful, but looking back, it feels like regret. That's because the real strength doesn't lie in the immediate explosion of emotion. It lies in restraint. It lies in being able to choose your response, not just react to theirs. So let me ask you this. When someone disrespects you, what do you want people to remember? I remember watching a colleague years ago get blindsided in a meeting. A senior executive belittled his work unfairly, right in front of the entire team. The room went silent, waiting to see what he would do. And in that moment, he had a choice: defend himself aggressively and risk looking unprofessional, or remain calm and let the disrespect reveal more about the other man than about him. Unfortunately, he chose the first path. His angry defense drowned out the pettiness of the insult, and all anyone remembered afterward was his outburst, not the unfair attack he had suffered. This is the danger we all face when emotions take the driver's seat. We think we're winning the battle, but we're actually losing the war for respect. Here's the truth. Your reaction is the mirror that reflects your true self. People may forget the insult, but they will remember the way you carried yourself under fire. And more importantly, you will remember you have to live with yourself long after the argument is over. That's why I want to give you a simple but powerful principle. Don't let their disrespect dictate your behavior. Let your values decide instead. Because here's the paradox. The more control you show in that moment, the more power you actually gain. People respect the one who keeps their head while others lose theirs. And when you can meet disrespect with clarity and composure, you turn the tables completely. So as we dive into this lesson together, remember your strength is not measured by how loud you can shout or how quickly you can strike back. Your strength is measured by how unshakable you remain when someone tries to pull you down. The next time you feel that fire rising, ask yourself one question. Does this response serve my dignity or just my ego? The answer to that question could be the difference between a moment you regret and a moment you're proud of for the rest of your life. Let's be honest, we've all been there. Someone says something disrespectful, and before you even realize it, words are flying out of your mouth. Your voice rises, your heart races, and you feel this rush of adrenaline. In that instant, it feels powerful. It feels like you're standing up for yourself. But a few minutes later, when the dust settles, you look back and think, why did I say that? Why did I let them push me so far? That's the trap of reacting immediately. It feels like strength in the moment, but in reality, it's the fastest way to lose control. And here's the hard truth. They're counting on it. They want you to snap. Because the moment you explode, you give them exactly what they wanted, proof that they have power over you. Think of it like this. The first reaction is almost always the worst reaction. It doesn't come from your wisdom. It comes from your wound. It's pure emotion, anger, hurt, indignation, taking the wheel while your judgment sits in the back seat. And when emotions are in charge, you say and do things that don't just damage the other person, they damage you. I once watched a colleague get blindsided in a team meeting. Another coworker, clearly trying to humiliate him, criticized his work in front of everyone. Instead of pausing, he snapped back instantly. His voice got loud, his words sharp. He listed his accomplishments and even attacked the critic's failures. For a moment, it seemed like he was winning. But as I looked around the room, I realized something. Nobody was focusing on the unfair criticism anymore. They were focused on his outburst. What should have been a moment where the aggressor looked petty turned into a scene where my colleague looked unprofessional, unstable, and out of control. That's the cost of reacting immediately. You think you're showing strength, but what people remember is your loss of composure. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus said something profound. Between stimulus and response lies our greatest freedom. That tiny space, the pause between what happens to you and how you respond, is where your power truly lives. When you eliminate that pause, you give up your freedom. You're no longer choosing, you're just reacting like a puppet on their strings. Here's a question I want you to ask yourself. Who do you want to be remembered as? The person who gets pulled down to the level of disrespect, or the person who shows dignity, self-control, and wisdom under fire? Now, how do you actually practice this? The first step is simple but powerful. Breathe. The next time you feel that surge of anger rising in your chest, take 3 deep breaths before you say a word. This isn't about counting to 10 like a child. It's about buying your mind just enough time for your higher self to catch up. In that pause, you switch from your survival brain, the one that just wants to fight, back to your rational brain, the one that asks, what response actually serves me here? Because here's the reality. What feels good in the moment is rarely what protects your dignity. Yelling back feels good, sarcasm feels good, but does it serve you? Usually not. What serves you is the response that keeps you proud of yourself later, long after the heat of the moment has passed. One technique I love is to imagine yourself as an observer, watching the scene from the outside. Ask, if someone I deeply respect was watching me right now, how would I want them to see me respond? That perspective alone can transform your reaction from impulsive to intentional. And remember this, your initial emotion is not a command, it's information. Anger tells you something unfair just happened. Hurt tells you someone crossed a boundary. But those emotions aren't instructions to lash out immediately. They're signals, data for you to process. The pause is where you decide what to do with that data. So the next time someone disrespects you, don't give them the satisfaction of controlling you. Don't let their behavior dictate yours. Instead, pause, breathe, and choose. Because in that space between their action and your response is your greatest strength. That's where dignity lives. That's where respect is earned, not from others, but from yourself. And I promise you this, the people watching, your colleagues, your friends, your family will notice. They'll remember your composure far longer than they'll remember the insult. So let me ask you again, when disrespect comes your way, do you want to be remembered for your anger or for your strength? The choice, always, is yours. One of the most common traps we fall into when someone disrespects us is this. We try to change their mind. We launch into arguments, explanations, long justifications, hoping that if we just say the right words, they'll realize they were wrong and finally treat us with respect. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Arguing to prove your worth is a battle you can never win. Why? Because the moment you start pleading your case, you've already placed your dignity on trial. You've handed them the role of judge, and you're standing there as the defendant, hoping they'll grant you permission to feel valued. Think about how backwards that is. Your worth doesn't depend on their approval, but the second you start trying to convince them, you're acting as if it does. I once watched a close friend fall into this exact trap. A coworker publicly insulted her work, dismissing it as sloppy and unprofessional. Instead of calmly setting the record straight and moving on, she spent over an hour defending herself. She listed every successful project she had ever completed, presented evidence to prove her competence, and practically begged for an apology. But here's what actually happened. The more she argued, the more the critic doubled down. By the end, she looked desperate, not dignified. He walked away satisfied because she had given him power over her emotions. That's the danger. When you try to change someone's mind about your value, you're operating from a flawed premise, that their opinion matters more than your own. You've essentially said, "I won't believe I'm worthy until you agree." That's a losing game, because people who choose to disrespect you aren't looking for truth or fairness. They've already made up their minds. They disrespect you not because of who you are, but because of who they are: jealous, insecure, or simply toxic. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, captured this beautifully when he said, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." In other words, the opinions of others, especially negative ones, are none of your business. What they think is outside your control. What you choose to believe about yourself, that's entirely within your control. So let me ask you, how many hours of your life have you wasted replaying conversations, wishing you could convince someone to see your value? How many times have you left a conflict more drained, more frustrated, and less confident simply because you thought if you just argued harder, they would finally respect you? Here's the reality. Respect that has to be begged for isn't real respect. It's conditional, fragile, and can be withdrawn at any time. The people who truly see your value won't need a presentation, a debate, or a defense. They'll see it in how you carry yourself, not in how loudly you argue for yourself. So what should you do instead? The answer is simple but powerful. State your position once clearly, calmly, and with dignity, and then stop engaging. You might say, "I don't agree with that assessment," or "That's not an accurate reflection of my work," and then let it go. Don't present evidence. Don't beg for acknowledgement. Don't waste precious energy trying to reason with someone who has no interest in reason. Your goal isn't to make them admit they were wrong. Your goal is to protect your peace, to maintain your dignity, and to show everyone, including yourself, that your value is not up for negotiation. Because here's the paradox. The less you argue for your worth, the more undeniable it becomes. Confident people don't debate their value. They embody it. They walk into the room with it. They don't chase recognition, they attract it by the way they live and respond. So the next time you feel that urge to argue, to explain, to prove yourself, stop and remember. Every second you spend trying to change their mind is a second you could spend building your life, your skills, and your future. Your energy is far too valuable to waste on people committed to misunderstanding you. Say what needs to be said, then walk away with your head high, because your dignity doesn't need their permission to exist. Let me ask you something. When someone raises their voice at you, what's the first instinct you feel? For most of us, it's to raise ours right back. When someone is rude, we want to get rude too. When they go low, we go even lower. And in that heated moment, it feels like the only way to prove we won't be pushed around. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That instinct matching their energy is not strength, it's surrender. The moment you mirror their tone, their anger, their hostility, you've handed over the steering wheel of your emotions. You're no longer driving, you're letting them decide who you become. And nearly everyone falls into this trap. In fact, I'd say 99% of people make this mistake. Why? Because it feels natural. It feels like justice. If they come at you with fire, shouldn't you fight back with fire? But here's the danger. Fire doesn't prove your strength. It proves that they had the power to ignite you. I'll never forget a project meeting I once attended. A team member grew frustrated, raised his voice, and started speaking in a condescending tone. Every part of me wanted to match his aggression to prove I wouldn't be intimidated. But instead, I made a deliberate choice to do the opposite. And here's what happened. Within minutes, the contrast was undeniable. He looked out of control. I looked composed. By the end, people weren't criticizing my ideas, they were shaking their heads at his behavior. That's the power of restraint. Psychologists call this symmetrical escalation. Both sides keep raising the intensity until things spiral completely out of control. At that point, it no longer matters who started it. Everyone just looks unprofessional, angry, and out of control. You lose the moral high ground, and you hand your enemy the satisfaction of knowing they dragged you down to their level. This is exactly why Seneca, the great Stoic thinker, reminded us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy, because the moment you become like them, you've already lost. So what's the alternative? The answer is counterintuitive, but it's powerful. Consciously do the opposite. If they're loud, lower your voice. If they're frantic, slow down. If they're emotional, stay rational. If they throw insults, stick to facts. That contrast creates something remarkable. People watching, whether it's coworkers, friends, or even strangers, immediately see the difference. Your composure highlights their chaos. Your calmness makes their anger look foolish. Without even saying it, you're showing everyone in the room exactly who has control, and it's not them. Here's something to reflect on. When you think back on past conflicts, who do you respect more? The person who kept their dignity or the one who lost their temper? Which one would you rather be remembered as? Now, don't confuse this with weakness. Staying calm under attack is not passive. It's active strength. Anyone can yell. Anyone can curse. Anyone can throw anger back in someone's face. But it takes real power to remain centered, steady, and unshakable when someone is trying to provoke you. Think of it like this. Your composure is your shield. It protects your reputation. It keeps you aligned with your own standards. And it exposes the flaws of the other person without you having to say a single word about them. You don't need to shout, "Look how unprofessional they're being." The contrast speaks for itself. And here's the most important part. When you refuse to match their energy, you keep control of your own story. You're not letting their behavior dictate yours. You're showing that your standards are non-negotiable, no matter how low they go. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their storm, pause and ask yourself, do I want to look like them, or do I want to stand apart? Remember, anyone can fight anger with anger, but it takes wisdom to fight chaos with calm. When you master this, you don't just win the moment, you win respect from others and from yourself. And that, my friend, is the kind of victory no one can take away from you. Here's another trap many of us fall into when we feel disrespected. We make it personal. Instead of addressing the actual issue, we start attacking the other person's character. And let's be honest, it feels good in the moment. When someone cuts us down, there's a powerful urge to fire back with all the things we've been storing up. Their flaws, their failures, every mistake they've ever made. But here's the danger. The instant you cross that line, the conversation is no longer about the problem, it's about the person. And when you attack who they are instead of what they did, you've already lost something far more valuable than the argument. You've lost your credibility. I once witnessed this in a business partnership that was actually promising. Two colleagues were debating strategy for their company. It started as a productive disagreement, focused on the merits of two different approaches. But then, one of them shifted. Instead of sticking to the issue, he brought up his partner's past mistakes, old failed projects, questioning his competence as a leader. Within minutes, what could have been a constructive discussion turned into a character assassination. The partnership didn't just suffer, it collapsed. Why? Because once you make it personal, there's no going back. People can adjust behavior. They can rethink a decision, but they can't erase their past, and they certainly can't change who they are in the middle of an argument. By attacking their character, you've taken the conflict to a place that can't be resolved. And in doing so, you burn bridges you might need in the future. Think about your own life. How many relationships, professional or personal, have been damaged not by the original disagreement, but by the words said in anger. Words that cut too deep. Words that weren't about the issue, but about the person's very identity. You can apologize later, but people rarely forget being called incompetent, dishonest, or worthless. That wound lingers long after the conflict itself is over. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, offered us wisdom here. Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. He reminds us to focus on their strengths. Why? Because if you train yourself to attack flaws, you'll destroy relationships, reputations, and ultimately your own peace of mind. So what's the alternative? The solution is simple, but it requires discipline. Address behavior, not character. Instead of saying, "You're always disrespectful," say, "That comment was unprofessional." Instead of, "You're a terrible decision maker," say, "I disagree with this choice." Keep the conflict within the boundaries of the issue at hand, not the person as a whole. This approach does three powerful things. First, it keeps the argument manageable. You're focusing on something that can actually change. Second, it leaves the door open for resolution. You're criticizing an action, not condemning a person. And third, it protects your reputation. You show yourself to be someone who can disagree strongly without losing professionalism. Here's a perspective shift that might help. When you feel the urge to attack, pause and ask yourself, do I want to solve this problem, or do I just want to hurt them back? If your real goal is resolution, attacking their character won't get you there. It'll only guarantee more hostility. Remember this, personal attacks say more about your character than theirs. They reveal that you hold grudges, that you fight dirty under pressure, and that you'd rather score points than solve problems. And that's not who you want to be remembered as. Conflict is inevitable, but the way you handle it defines you. Keep the focus where it belongs on behavior, not identity. Criticize the action, not the person. Because once you cross the line into personal attacks, you haven't just lost the argument, you've lost an opportunity to maintain your dignity and build respect. So the next time you're in the heat of conflict, remember, fight the issue, not the person. That's how you protect relationships, protect your peace, and protect your reputation. And in the long run, that's what truly sets you apart. Now, let's talk about the most dangerous mistake of all. It doesn't happen in the heat of the moment. It happens afterward inside your own mind. It's when you let their disrespect live rent-free in your head. You've probably experienced this. The argument is over. The meeting is done. The conversation has ended. But in your mind, it's still going. You replay their words again and again. You imagine the comebacks you should have said. You think about what you'll say next time, and the more you replay it, the angrier you get. Here's the problem. The disrespect itself may have lasted 5 minutes, but by obsessing over it, you're extending your suffering for hours, days, sometimes even weeks. They hurt you once, but you keep hurting yourself by reliving it. I remember a Friday afternoon when a colleague made a smug, dismissive comment to me in the hallway. It was quick, barely a minute. I brushed it off at the time, but all weekend I couldn't stop thinking about it. Saturday morning, I was coming up with clever lines I should have used. Saturday night, I was drafting imaginary emails that would expose his behavior. By Sunday, I was exhausted, my mood was ruined, and I had spent more mental energy on him than on my own family and goals. And here's the kicker. By Monday, he had probably forgotten the whole thing, but I had given him my entire weekend. That's the power we hand over when we let disrespect consume us. The Stoics understood this danger well. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Rumination is a choice. It's choosing to be hurt over and over by the same event. It's like picking at a wound, keeping it fresh instead of letting it heal. Psychologists today call this rumination, the cycle of replaying negative experiences without resolution. And science backs this up. The more you dwell, the stronger those neural pathways of anger and hurt become. You're literally training your brain to suffer longer than necessary. So let me ask you, how much of your life have you given away to people who disrespected you once, but whom you've allowed to keep living in your mind for weeks? How many hours have you wasted replaying conversations that should have ended the moment you walked away? Here's the truth. Your mental space is valuable real estate. Don't rent it out for free to people who don't deserve it. So how do you stop this cycle? Start by giving yourself permission to feel the emotion, but put a time limit on it. Maybe 10 minutes to acknowledge the anger, the hurt, the frustration. Name the feeling, honor it, but don't feed it. File it away in your mind as data. This is who they are. Now I know. And then move forward. When you catch your mind drifting back to the incident, redirect it. Have a mental cue ready, something that reminds you, no, they don't get more of my time. Pour that energy into something that actually matters. Every minute you reclaim for yourself is a minute they can't steal from you. Because here's the real victory. Not letting someone who disrespected you once continue to control your peace of mind. So the next time you feel yourself replaying an insult or a moment of disrespect, pause and ask, do I want to sacrifice my time, my mood, and my energy for someone who has already moved on? When you refuse to let disrespect consume you, you win twice. You keep your dignity in the moment, and you keep your peace long after it's over. That's the kind of strength people notice. And more importantly, that's the kind of strength you'll carry with you for the rest of your life. There's another mistake people make when they've been disrespected. And at first, it feels like the most natural response in the world. Revenge. That burning desire to teach them a lesson, to give them a taste of their own medicine, to make sure they feel the same pain they inflicted on you. It feels powerful, doesn't it? Like justice. But here's the truth. Revenge is not justice, it's a trap. And it doesn't just harm the other person. In the long run, it poisons you. Think about it. When you're plotting revenge, who's really in control of your life? Not you. You're no longer moving forward. You're stuck, orbiting around their actions. I've seen this play out in real life. Years ago, I knew someone who was publicly humiliated by his boss. Instead of taking the higher road or channeling that energy into his career, he became obsessed with payback. He spread rumors. He tried to undermine projects. And yes, eventually, the boss lost credibility. But here's the irony. So did he. His entire reputation was damaged, and people began to see him as bitter and petty. The revenge didn't free him. It chained him to the very person he despised. And the Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." It means the real victory isn't making them hurt, it's proving to yourself that you're untouchable, that they couldn't drag you down into the mud with them. Here's something to reflect on. Revenge feels good for 5 minutes. But then what? You're left with the same emptiness, the same disrespect, and now an even bigger mess to clean up. You've sacrificed your dignity just to get even. But dignity is the one thing you can't afford to lose. Let me put it this way. When you rise above the need for revenge, you don't just win morally, you win practically. People respect those who can remain calm and focused in the face of betrayal. Colleagues trust those who don't fight dirty. And life has a funny way of punishing people who act with cruelty or disrespect. It's called consequences. Sometimes you don't need to deliver justice, because time and truth have a way of doing it for you. So the real question is, do you want to waste your life being the executioner of someone else's punishment? Or do you want to build a life so strong, so unshakable, that their disrespect no longer matters? Here's the Stoic solution. Let your success be your answer. Instead of plotting revenge, channel that energy into becoming better, stronger, and more resilient. The person who disrespected you will fade into the background, but your growth will last forever. And think about the message it sends. When you don't retaliate, you're saying, your behavior isn't worth my time. That silence, that calm confidence, is louder than any insult you could throw back at them. So the next time you feel the fire of revenge rising, pause and ask yourself, do I want to spend my life proving them wrong or proving myself right? Because one of those paths keeps you stuck in the past, and the other leads you into a stronger future. Never forget, revenge might feel like power, but it's really just bondage. True freedom is letting go, moving forward, and living so well that their disrespect becomes irrelevant. That's not weakness. There's one final mistake that might be the most subtle and the most dangerous. It's not about exploding in anger. It's not about seeking revenge. It's about slowly giving yourself away without even realizing it. It's the mistake of changing who you are just to win back someone's respect. When someone disrespects us, the sting can cut deep. And for many people, the instinct isn't to fight back, it's to bend, to adjust their personality, to soften their values. They think, if I just prove myself, if I just make them happy, if I just become the version of me they approve of, then maybe they'll respect me again. But let me ask you, at what cost? What happens when you reshape yourself to please someone else? You lose the one thing more important than their respect. You lose your own. I've seen this happen countless times. A talented professional gets criticized by a boss. Instead of holding her ground, she begins to change. She starts working late hours, not because she believes in the project, but because she's desperate for approval. She swallows her ideas in meetings because she doesn't want to risk more criticism. Over time, she isn't the same confident leader she once was. She's become a shadow of herself, molded by fear of rejection. And the tragic irony, the more she tried to please, the less respect she earned. This is the truth people don't like to hear. Chasing approval doesn't create respect, it kills it. Respect comes from standing firm in your values, not from bending them. When you compromise your standards just to be accepted, you're sending a message that says, your opinion of me matters more than my own. That's not strength, that's surrender. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, put it perfectly. He who seeks to please everyone pleases no one, including yourself. So how do we avoid this trap? The key is to get clear on your values, your non-negotiables. Who are you, regardless of what anyone else thinks? What do you stand for, even when others disagree? When you know that, you stop living reactively. You stop molding yourself like clay in someone else's hands. Instead, you live with integrity, and integrity is magnetic. People may not always agree with you. Here's a simple question to reflect on. If I change myself to please them, will I still respect myself tomorrow? Because at the end of the day, you have to live with yourself long after the argument is over, long after the disrespect fades. And if you've sacrificed your identity for someone else's approval, the emptiness you feel will be far worse than the sting of their insult. True strength is not about being liked by everyone. It's about being unshakably aligned with yourself. It's about saying, I would rather lose your approval than lose myself. That's a kind of dignity no one can take from you. So the next time you feel tempted to twist yourself into knots just to earn respect from someone who disrespected you, pause and remember this. Their approval is temporary, but your self-respect is permanent. Don't trade what is eternal for what is fleeting. Because at the end of the day, the world doesn't need another imitation of them. The world needs you authentic, strong, and unapologetically yourself. So let's step back and put this all together. We've talked about 7 critical mistakes people make when they're disrespected. 7 traps that can cost you your peace, your dignity, and your power if you're not careful. They are reacting immediately, trying to change their mind, matching their negative energy, making it personal, attacking their character, letting it consume your thoughts long after it's over, seeking revenge, losing yourself just to win their approval. Think about it. How many of these mistakes have you made in your own life? How many times have you walked away from an argument and realized you gave away more of yourself than the insult ever took? The truth is, Disrespect is not something you can avoid forever. It will come. People will test you. They'll push your buttons. They'll try to drag you down to their level. That's not the question. The real question is, when that moment comes, who will you choose to be? Because disrespect isn't just an insult, it's a test. It's a mirror showing you how much control you really have over yourself. Anyone can explode in anger. Anyone can try to argue their worth. Anyone can fall into the trap of revenge. But very few can hold their ground with wisdom, composure, and dignity. And those few are the ones who earn respect not just from others, but from themselves. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the essence of Stoicism. You can't control what others do, but you can always control your response. And in that control lies your true power. Imagine for a moment the kind of person you become when you refuse to fall into these 7 mistakes. You don't explode, you pause. You don't beg for validation, you stand firm. You don't mirror anger, you show calm strength. You don't attack character, you address behavior. You don't obsess for days, you move forward. You don't plot revenge, you focus on growth. And you never lose yourself just to be liked. You remain unshakably you. That's a person people can't ignore. That's someone others look at and say, "There's real strength." That's someone I respect, even if I don't like them. And more importantly, that's someone who can look in the mirror and feel proud. Because the respect you need most is not from strangers, not from critics, not even from friends or colleagues, it's from yourself. When you can walk away from conflict with your head high, knowing you stayed true to your values, so the next time someone disrespects you, and trust me, it will happen again. Remember this, that moment is not about them, it's about you. It's about who you choose to be in the face of provocation. Don't waste your life handing your peace over to people who don't deserve it. Don't let their bad behavior dictate your character. Instead, let every insult, every jab, every act of disrespect become your opportunity to prove what kind of person you are. And when you choose wisdom over impulse, dignity over revenge, self-respect over approval, you win. You win without fighting. You win without shouting. You win without lowering yourself to their level. That's the power of Stoicism. That's the power of true strength. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time someone disrespects you, what will you prove to them, to others, and most importantly, to yourself? Because your character isn't revealed by what they say or do. It's revealed by how you respond. And that, my friend, is where your true power lies.